If you're sitting on a couple of $100,000 in your super fund and you're looking to massively increase your returns, then this is the video for you. In today's video, I'm sitting down with Matt and looking at the pros and cons of stocks versus property in our super funds and where we could be 15 years from today. Now, not only does Matt run a very successful business, but he's also a sophisticated property and stock trader with many stories to come in today's video. So let's get going.
It was all a dream. Maybe I'm dreaming.
Beautiful. Well, welcome back, mate. Thank you so much for being here.
No worries, a pleasure again.
You've actually just helped me establish a self-managed super fund, and as of literally today, settle on my first property in super, so thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries, a pleasure.
It was definitely a different journey, having been like an outside of super residential property investor in the past, but we got it done, and honestly, mate, I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, no, a pleasure. It's a little bit tricky compared to outside, as you probably experienced it. We're setting up the self-managed super fund, rolling over the funds and the finance side, but we
Few
got
extra
the
hoops, few extra pieces of paper.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
But ultimately, I'm now sitting on a beautiful big piece of land in the Geelong market down there in Melbourne, which has done extremely well. I think in the last 18 years, Geelong did 271%.
Yep.
Which is actually more than any other market on the east coast of Australia.
Yeah, nice.
But in the last 7 years, it's done about 25%. So there's a method to my madness getting down there at the moment. It's kind of like Sunny Coast Goldie maybe 7-8 years ago, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide maybe 5 years ago.
Yep.
But ultimately, you helped me do this because I wanted to move myself into a much stronger financial position longer term. So to kick things off, let's maybe look at, you know, someone like not like myself, but someone with about $200,000 in their super fund right now.
Yep.
What are the pros and cons of keeping that in stocks? And then where could we be sort of 15 years from now if you had your 200 grand just sitting in the stock market this out?
Yeah. So basically with the pros of having your $200,000 inside a index fund is that you don't really have to provide any administration to the super fund in terms of tax returns or provide any other documentation. It's all handled for you. So it is an easy outcome where you just pick up the envelope or go online and see what your super balance is.
Okay.
The con side of it all is that it is a percentage based on your balance. So as your balance grows, as well as so does the fees. So that's the issue around, from what we've seen with a lot of super balances. And also it's not in your control. You're relying on the super fund, obviously the research house and the fund managers to provide that level of return for you as well.
And do you see most people sitting inside like a simple system like Host Plus, which is you know, diversified global or local index funds, or do you see people, you know, what do you see a lot of people in their 30s, and then what do you see a lot of people in their 50s doing with that? Are they, obviously your balance is smaller when you're younger and it grows as you age.
Yep.
But what strategies do you see people that are looking after their own super within a Host Plus or a Sun Super or whatever doing at the moment?
Yeah, usually it's like a high growth or growth kind of index. Well, that would be a diversified portfolio. And then we've seen people just put it in an index, you know, with Host Plus or Australian Super, and in terms of the Australian or international markets. A lot of the funds we've seen have been a lot more aggressive than what we've seen previously. So I think people have been quite comfortable with the markets and the returns. However, you know, there has been volatility in the past. And as you mentioned, you know, there probably will be volatility coming forward as well. So it is obviously overpriced based on where the current markets are. It's probably good for people to be wary of that and
so
be
what
mindful.
You're saying there is like the stock markets, like there are a lot of companies that are very well priced right now, or based on history, maybe potentially even well overpriced. And what we're reading from America is that a lot of the institutional investors are kind of sitting on the sidelines a little bit at the moment, and a lot of the retail investors are still chasing it pretty hard. Is that sort of what you're seeing behind the scenes as well?
Yeah, look, definitely. There's definitely, like if you look at the stock market and seeing what stocks have actually pulled back from, you know, year to date. You know, you got your Microsoft coming back close to double digits now. Tesla's coming back. Amazon's back.
So some of those ones that were really inflated on like 27, some of them 50 times earnings are like coming back to earth now.
Yeah, it's starting to. The question is, how far back will they come down? People have indicated they're a buy, but you know, it's hard to. That's the tricky part with the stock market, isn't it? Like if you had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
It would be worth waking up at 12:30 every
Yeah,
night.
that's right. That's right. So, yeah, but we're starting to see a lot of these large companies, like even Netflix, Nike, pull back a great deal. And here domestically with Australia, CSL, you know, they were trading at once at 300 and now trading at $142.
Yeah, wow, okay.
So there's definitely, and it's not to say that on the flip side, there's other stocks that have done really well, but this is just the current market, and I think a lot of people need to realise that that's what you're also invested in. So you need to be mindful of it, or even though they've got the research house and the smarts to manage the portfolio accordingly, you just need to be also mindful that things can also be very unpredictable, no matter how much research you can do, etc. It's very difficult to beat the market. And that's why a lot of the active managers over a long period of time cannot beat the index, whereas it's just in the top 20 or top 50 stocks.
I've heard that. Like I was reading that book, Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins, where he sat down with, I think it was about 7 or 8 billionaire traders.
Yeah.
But mostly he sat down with Ray Dalio.
Yeah.
And they looked at the top 30 or top 20 highest performing fund managers globally over a 30-year period.
Yeah.
Chipping and changing them in on an annual basis.
Yeah.
And I think less than 2% of the best in the world beat the Vanguard index over that 30-year period. So it's like, obviously their businesses are winning without a doubt, taking those fees, but it's like their returns weren't even as strong as like the iShares or the Vanguard. So it's kind of interesting. I suppose, like coming back to all of that, the benefits of stocks from my perspective is it's simple, it's diversified index. You can get a spread of American or Australia's best, or you know, a combination of the emerging markets as well. The stocks seem to have returned better than property over the long term on non-leverage.
Yeah.
So, you know, what would you say like is a normal return, maybe like a 7% to...
Yeah, look, ideally, I guess, in terms of when people look at their statements and they see the 1 year versus the 3 year and the 5 year returns, it's hovering around between 7 to 10 at the moment. And there's usually, we're starting to see double digits.
They're phenomenal returns, right?
They are. But the concern is, and this was the concern leading up to the GFC, is when you have a long history of double digits, there is going to be potentially a correction, because it's really unheard of to have double digits, and very high level double digits too. So, it's an interesting market at the moment. Obviously, we're going through this technology boom, and once again, you know, obviously it started with Apple in 2008 with the iPhone. It's happening now with AI, with NVIDIA. And obviously that has carried these great returns. Like, these companies are huge in terms of how much they're generating.
And the market's trying to get a gauge on what's the true valuations of these companies versus the speculation, and that's why you're seeing so much volatility in them. Yeah,
definitely. Like, you see stocks based on speculation that this is going to be the next best thing, but when you look at their profits, they're making a net loss. And it's just like, how's this stock so high? It doesn't make sense. But the speculation on that this stock will eventually, you know, over the long term, be a high profitable and highly, you know, generate a high revenue. So it is interesting in terms of it all when you look at the underlying stocks and see how the speculation kicks in.
Is there anything that you really like at the moment, just for like, you know, this is not financial advice, this is certainly not a stock tip, but I know you said off camera that you woke up at 12:30 last night and missed a 7 to 13% jump on something that you like. Is there something that you see value in at the moment within that whole new emerging world? Yeah,
look, I guess in the US market at the moment, there's a real push for AI infrastructure, and we've actually seen it, and have kind of missed the boat as such with hard drives. Like, obviously AI infrastructure, you need the Seagates of the world, Scanders, to actually store all the data. Now they've taken off. Like, around about Scandis is trading around about $600. At the
Wow.
beginning of the year, it was 300. Seagate's around about 200 off the memory, and now hovering around 400.
So they've cleaned up this year.
Yeah, but then back on that is the AI infrastructure warehouses where they're just storing all the data, and that's other companies like NBIUS, I believe it's called, NBIUS,
I'm the wrong guy.
NEBIUS or something like that.
Yeah.
CoreWeaver, Iren is based out of Sydney. They've got a little bit more of a long-term plan where they're actually buying up the land and putting all the infrastructure in there. So they just signed up a deal with Microsoft for $9 billion.
Wow.
And there's other AI, there's other Bitcoin mining companies that are starting to potentially look at AI as well. And they're probably the ones also to be mindful of, because if they move into the AI side, they will also potentially get larger contracts from these likes of Google and Nvidia, etc., and their stocks could really also explode.
I remember in 2011, after finishing uni, I went back to Sydney. Like I was up here for a little while, and then I went back there, and I was working at IBM on the Northern Beaches.
Yep.
And then we had a massive data center in the Hills District of Sydney, and I remember walking into this thing with one of the guys one day. And you ever seen that scene in The Matrix where it's just like endless? It was just like football fields and football fields of just data center. And I was walking through and it was pitch black and it was loud, and I'm like, how long can I be in this room for with this radiation? Was what I was thinking. But it was absolutely wild, and this was way back then.
Yeah.
I know that in one of the areas that we really like in northwest Melbourne at the moment, Amazon's just came in and bought, I think it was a 10 or 11 hectare site, 19 k's from the city, where they're going to pump in, you know, like the whole site is basically being leveled and turned into a data center. Yeah. That's going to result in like property price growth, job growth in the area, in what I see as like an emerging market around that Craigieburn area. So it's not just, as you said, like the stock speculation, but it comes with the higher paying jobs, the construction side, and then the running them side. Yep. It's really cool.
It's a whole industry, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and it's the future. Like, what about the negatives of stocks outside of the fact that you can't leverage on it without taking on significant risks through, like, you know, margins, I suppose?
Yeah, definitely. I guess that's probably the key part, is that, you know, banks don't tend to take a stock or a portfolio of stocks as leverage or security. There are tools which you can, obviously, with margin lending and other kind of managed funds which are geared, but they're quite aggressive. And as we know, if there's a drop in the market, you need to obviously provide that level of loan to value ratio straight away.
It's pretty scary to get a 100 or 200 grand call or $1 million call for bigger players out there.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, the great thing about obviously the property side is that it is a tool which the banks can rely on. They know that they can fire sale an asset pretty quickly. That's hence the reason why they look at that 80% mark for loan to value ratio. So that's probably the disadvantage with shares, is that you can't use it as security to go in and leverage.
And then I suppose there's that incredible history of, like, you can just Google it, 100 years of stock performance in the US, and you can see, you know, what the averages look like. And there's so much incredible free data in Google now that, you know, you can look at the 20 year, the 50 years, the 10 year, the 3 years, and people can get a sense of what the returns could look like. Yeah. So let's say that we had that $200,000 and we get a 7% return for the next 15 years. Effectively, your $200,000 investment in the index fund is now worth $551,000. Yes. So you made effectively $351K, which is a phenomenal amount of money for, you know, zero effort except putting your employer's contribution straight into the stocks. Yeah,
look, definitely. And as I said, it's something which you're not really managing and controlling. So for certain clients, you know, that's, you know, something simple is sometimes what they're after. Yeah. For clients who want to drive it a little bit harder, there's ways to even boost that by looking at your concessional contributions or non-concessional contributions, looking at the last 5 years of your super contributions as well. So there's all sorts of strategies to boost superannuation for shares or self-managed super funds as well. So there's a strategy to boost that up. on top of, that's just looking at a performance, but there's also advice which would also be able to increase that figure up as well.
I love that. So talking about those contributions a little bit from the ideas that you and Dale at Pool Group and Pool Group Wealth have been able to give to me, me and Lisa are now putting in concessional contributions up to $30-something thousand a year each.
Yeah, spot on.
But because we ran our own business and we hadn't backdated it, I was able to put in like 150 grand each for that 5 years before or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was. Maybe it was 120 each, but it enabled us to get a really good chunk in there very, very fast.
Yeah, spot on.
But for employees out there, their option is whatever their boss is kicking in. So if you're earning 200 grand a year, they're going to put in a bit over 20. And then you can put in those concessional contributions on top of that at a significantly reduced tax rate compared to the 45 cents that so many of our clients are working on.
Yeah, that's right. Like, I'd rather be paying 15% versus anything more than that, really.
100%.
And even though, people go, well, I can't use super. Well, as you're seeing yourself, you can. You bought that asset near Geelong, and predominantly, that's where you can control it yourself. So even though it's in that environment, like, you can drive past the asset. It's like it's yours anyway. And eventually, and when I say it is yours, but there are obviously, time constraints on when you can access it or sell it down and use those funds for spending, really.
Yeah, and so that could be, preservation age, you said at 60 roughly if you want to retire then, or, whatever the government says it's 67 and a half or something now. It could be 450 in 30 years' time. Who knows how we're going to live.
And that's probably the uncertainty which a lot of Australians have, is what the government policies, they constantly change the rules around super. But overall, it's always going to be a tax-effective environment, because otherwise they'll be shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, they're going to pay for us if we don't pay for ourselves.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So
that's, stocks and that world, incredible long-term returns. If you just keep chipping away and dollar cost averaging into the market, we've seen many, many people become millionaires over a 30, 40-year period through super, through this strategy.
Yep.
I'm assuming there's different ways for different stages of life. Like, I'm in the accumulation, leverage phase of my life to get a big balloon of assets, hopefully by retirement, that I can work with you on that next phase and figure out what I do then.
Yep.
But for now, it's just, I like property. So if we go down the property route, what are the positives and negatives of, buying property in super?
Yeah, so the positives are obviously the fact that you can leverage. So you can take your 200,000, take 20% on, say for example, a $700,000 property. There's 140 from your 200k superannuation fund plus stamps and costs. Should leave you close to $20,000 to $30,000 remaining. So that way you can have it as a cash buffer there for the moment if anything was to happen. So, but ideally you've taken the 200,000 and you've generated it to a $700,000 asset, even though obviously, yes, it's leveraged at a 560k loan. You are receiving rent from that property, which would help for the repayments. You've got your employer contributions going in there as well.
You might want to chip in some extra personal contributions at that 15% if you're in a financial position to do so.
Yeah.
You can offset account it now as well. And you also said in a previous video where we went really deep into super for a couple of hours, that there's tax benefits like there is outside of super with negative gearing in super, which I had no idea about either. Yeah,
negative gearing. Also, you set up a self-managed super fund, you can get benefits from franking credits too, from your cash reserves, which you haven't invested in the super.
Okay.
So there's all sorts of tax benefits in that environment as well.
I love that. And maybe that's another one, like the pros and cons of buying stocks in and the tax positions there, because I'm only just starting to understand these franking credits, but what you said off camera was phenomenal. We might keep that for the next one. Yeah,
definitely. And, it's 15% really, that environment. So it's definitely worthwhile versus outside where you're going to get taxed at your marginal tax rates. And they're talking about potentially reviewing that in the next budget, where they can tax us even more.
Oh, really?
So the question is, where would they concentrate on? So
is it going to be grabbing the super, or is it going to be grabbing the outside of super stuff?
I think a majority of it would probably be more outside.
Yeah.
But they're having a Senate inquiry regarding capital gains tax. So I don't know if yeah, like where that may go, but in May we'll obviously see it. I think there'll be too much of an uproar around the country for any
They just
further.
forget that 98% of the properties in Oz are being built by investors like you and me and the people listening to this. And so if there's no appetite for us to do something because it's not worthwhile, then, you know, me and you are stock and silver traders now, you know.
Yeah, yeah, well,
but we
that's
find
right.
a different area to find value.
Well, there'll be a shortage even more, right? And
Yeah.
then that's the problem that we have, that there's such a shortage that rental yields are high, and obviously that's also pushing the capital value of a property up as well.
Because they're looking at their tax, like, you know, the government owes, not their tax, sorry, but the money that they owe, like the government is still heavily indebted as well.
Yeah.
And they're looking at the gains that we've all made as investors and going, well, what would the Australian public stomach for us trying to get some of those gains as they sell their properties out? Because they're just thinking revenue on the way in, on the way through, on the way out.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty good environment in Australia though, compared to a lot of other countries. Like it's not New Zealand where there wasn't any capital gains tax or any entry fees. Like that was a nice environment, but that also had its own effect where, you know, prices went up 300% in 5 years and the whole world speculated to rinse their market and now they're sort of stuff. So
yeah.
I suppose there's pros and cons each way.
That's true. That's true.
So let's say we've got the same, you know, $200,000.
Yep.
We put it into a 700k property. You said 140 goes into the deposit, so you owe 560k. But ultimately, we're getting our return on the 700k.
Yes.
So looking at the board now, if we get, what did we say, a
5%.
5% return on the property over the next 15 years, your 700k property goes to 1,455k.
Yep.
Which is phenomenal. Because remember, we've only still had our 200k at the start.
Yep.
So this is the power of leveraging property. And then we're, you know, looking when we take out the deposit at about, what, $895,000 gain.
Yep. So yeah, once you clear the debt, you'll have 895, but that's assuming that's on interest only at 560.
Yeah.
Usually with a strategy over 15 years, we would put in a strategy to pay that debt down to zero over a period of time, especially for someone who's nearing retirement.
Sure. So what are some of the ways that people fast track that debt reduction? Like obviously the concessional and non-concessional contributions.
Well, ideally what we tend to do is anyone around about 50 and under, we tend to say, okay, well, let's get it to a level where the property is looking after itself.
Yeah.
And that's usually around the 60 to 70% loan to value ratio. And then we look at building up another nest egg for another deposit.
Okay.
Because as we know, the aim of the game is to accumulate good investments which are inflation linked. So, you know, if you put it all in one property, that's going to be the result. But if you can buy another one and another one, then it's you've diversified all your investments and potentially been able to gain on 3 assets instead of 1.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so ultimately when you hit that retirement or preservation age, you're sitting on 3 properties that you can sell down with whatever tax positions exist at that time versus just the one.
Yeah, spot on. And you can even sell one to pay off the debt for the other 2. And then that way you're sitting on 2 investment properties, bringing in that rental income.
I love that because my strategy, as you know, is I've bought a 4,000 square metre block that's zoned single density residential now.
Yeah.
But talking to the strategic planners, they're already technically like realigning the boundary of that street.
Yeah.
And there's a desire to turn that into higher density because it's only 6 minutes from the city.
Yeah, nice.
The neighbour behind my block has just built 12.
Yeah.
But I think if this gets a rezone, I could build about 20 odd townhouses on it.
Yep.
And so my strategy for this one will be to keep this for 20 years and see what happens probably.
Yep.
Where my brother Simon, who you just helped set up a super fund and buy a property in Super 2, he's bought a 600-700k property roughly.
Yeah, yep, roughly around that.
Beachside Geelong as well. Simon's strategy is rinse Geelong over the next 5 to 7 years.
Yep.
Sell it, pay whatever tax he needs to at that time, and then use your support to go and buy turn that 1 into 2 inside super, or maybe that 1 into 3 even at that time. So there's different ways of going about this depending on the potential of the property and the strategy.
Yeah, spot on. And I think that's the pro part of the Self-Managed Super Fund, right? Is that you've got a strategy, you've seen an opportunity, You couldn't do that if it was in Host Plus, right? So
No chance.
or Australian Retirement Trust. So
Yeah.
you know that, and at the end of the day, for people who have leveraged outside and want to and see an opportunity, they can look at their super fund and go, I believe this will be a long-term asset which will grow over that period of time. I want to take control of that, and I want to, give it a shot.
You know, I've bought over $700 million worth of property now for myself and my clients in
Yep.
the last 11 years. And I had no idea about super, honestly, until we started to do this video series. And there's 2 other videos we've done if people want to go and see your strategy and how you doubled money in the last GFC, or go super down the super rabbit hole, super deep down the super hole, where we did the 2.5 hour potty. But
Yeah.
effectively, it was only through catching up with you where you said, I bought this crazy investment
Yeah.
in super with all of this potential. And I'm like, but how are you going to realize that potential? I'm like, oh, you can sell from your super at the moment back to yourself.
Yeah.
I'll keep it there because I couldn't have done it outside of super. I'll write it up and then I'll sell it back to myself and let my future self decide if he wants to develop it. And I was like, oh, so I don't just have to buy a vanilla property. I can do something with a little bit of a twist, which was really interesting to me. So that one idea that you gave me could potentially change my entire family's future.
Yeah, I know, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad, because I do believe it's a good strategy. Just even seeing the strategy applied outside with one of my properties at Golden Beach, with that long-term view, like, it'd be great if that was in my super fund where I could
That would be
it.
very nice. You can't sell it back to your super,
No,
can you?
no, I can't. No, I can't. But anyway.
Yeah. So, that's the thing, right? Like, we live and we learn. Like,
Yeah.
you've done a heap of properties. I've done a heap of properties as well. My strategy moving forward, especially after selling a property this morning,
Yep.
in Mooloolaba, which I built back in about 2018-19, and doubling my money on it during that time, is I'm an investor. I love business for 2 reasons. Like, I like the challenge of it, and I love helping people.
Yeah.
I like helping people that were me in the past without these ideas, and I love getting access to people like yourself that are absolutely balling out, and you being open to, like, allowing all of us to pick your brain and learn things from you as well.
Yeah, no, pleasure.
But with what I really love, and I think you're the same, is like, you're an investor first that became a business person. I was an investor first.
Yep.
And I think coming from that tint versus being like a mortgage broker through your business, which is MySeeker, the benefit to both of us of being investors first and then business people second is we just love this stuff. And it's like, you're waking up at 12:30 some nights for fun.
Yeah.
/ also pain sometimes, I'm assuming too.
Yeah.
You're choosing to talk about buying more assets. You're choosing to keep moving forward. And it's what we do. It's like, you don't ever have to do anything again. Theoretically, I don't either. But it's like, we're in the arena of our own lives and we love it.
Yeah.
Versus, people that get into teaching people about property that have never bought property, or people that get into financial planning. I started young, so did you. No disrespect to anyone that's young. Like, I love it. Like, go get it. Learn everything you possibly can.
Yep.
Become an expert and help as many people up as you can. But I want my financial advisor to be fucking rich.
Yeah.
Like, I want
Yeah.
my property investor dude to be 10 times further down the line than I ever plan on going, because I know what happens, and I know how many car crashes you've had to have in your mind and in your body to get to this level.
Yep.
How many things you've had to figure out. And I think, for people that are interested in that level, hitting you up at, MySeeker, your mortgage broking business is a great place to start, or your other business, Pool Group Wealth, where you can help them with financial planning strategy, setting up SMSFs, and, looking at the pros and cons of this stuff. I've also heard you talk to people and go, this just isn't right for you.
Yep.
Just keep doing what you're doing. Like, it's complimentary up front before you each decide if they're the right fit or not for you and for them.
Yeah, spot on. Like, at the end of the day, we only provide a strategy, and then we look at the product. The strategy, we believe, is where a lot of people don't really have a plan when it comes to a financial plan, and that's where we try to fine tune. Then we obviously then look at products, if it's going to be in the shares or investments or property, and obviously with the help and guidance from yourself and your team, you've been able to help so many of our clients as well as your own clients achieve hopefully financial freedom in the near future.
Yeah, I love it. So, I'm just so grateful for today. The reason I'm in property in my super is because I don't want to take a 50% bath on some of my stocks if that happens at some point in the next 5 years, and that's me just being the standard scaredy cat that you know I am. But the second thing is I really want leverage in super. Like I'm a property guy. I'm only 40 years of age, which is old, I suppose, to like my 20-year-old self, but it's young compared to my 60-year-old self.
Yeah.
And I want leverage on my property through undervalued markets and high quality assets over the next 20, 27 and a half years to get to a point where future Ben doesn't have to think about anything except which European vacation I'm going on, or which America trip I'm going on, or which surf trip I'm taking my kids on at that point, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I want all of the choices in the world to give to charity and to help other people and to not take an income from my work and to do this stuff for free because I still love it, but I don't need the income from it. And I think investing in property gets me the leverage to have those choices. Like it's very, very, very clear with those two scenarios that one of them you're going to be exponentially better off on the same money.
Yeah, spot on, spot on.
Is there anything you wanted to round it out? Sorry to put you on the spot and say to like someone that's in their 20s, 30s or 40s that's just learning about super like I have been, that's not as far down the rabbit hole as you are?
I think try to understand it early on, especially like there's the first home saver super scheme, which not many people know about it at all.
You know, what is that really briefly?
Yeah, so you can put up to $15,000 into super of additional contributions.
Wow.
And then over the period of time, you can take out up to $50,000 from your super
to go
fund.
towards a deposit for your first home.
Yeah. So basically, you know, when you put the $15,000 concessional contributions into super, that's getting taxed at 15%. So you've got a saving there already.
So put it in for 3 years, that's 45 grand that you only paid 15% on, and then you're like, hey, I'm ready to buy something.
Yeah.
Instead of the people out there paying 30 or 45, just think of it as forced savings, really.
Spot on, spot on. So that's a start, and that's a good way to actually understand super and the powerful outcome of that being invested in the markets as well. And then obviously from there, you can then actually add the 1 or 2 or 3%. So a lot of the government employees, they put like an extra 2%. Their employer will put 5%, and we've seen the difference with their super balance over the same period of time be dramatically different. So we're talking probably an extra 150 to 200 grand by just doing that alone at the start.
Wow.
So, you know, by the time you're then 30, you can easily take that money, set up a self-managed super fund, and then start controlling where you want to go. And you can do it at a much earlier stage in life.
So you can request that your employer puts in a little bit more into your super voluntary.
Yep.
And you put a little bit more in as well voluntary. And instead of, you know, putting the balloon in that you and I put in every year of 30 grand each or whatever we can, you know, they're just putting a little bit in each week that they don't, you know, have this balloon at the end of the year to chuck in.
Yep.
And they're also, like, their balance is just exponentially growing without them really noticing that 2 or 5% that they're not receiving in the wage.
Yeah, spot on, spot on. So just tweaking that. And then that way, if you've got a balance where it's over 200 earlier on, away you go. You can start doing so many cool things with it.
You mentioned also, like, there's all of these things that I never knew about, like a brother and a sister could effectively put their super together.
Yep.
A couple of friends could.
Yep. I believe you up to 6 members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like very flexible. Like we've got a couple of brothers at the moment. One of them's buying a property. Another one's just bought 2 more. They've got 100 grand each in their super. They're in their like early 30s. They're actually coming together. I think with your support to set up that super fund, and then we'll buy them one in super as well. Like that's a way for them to get ahead, and then they've just got the agreement that at some point in the future they'll sell it, distribute the profits back to their own funds and buy one each.
Yep, that's right. So even though you put all your super funds together, it's actually segregated anyway. So everyone, all your contributions will go to your portion, and the other members' contributions will go to their portion. So everyone's contribution is actually measured over a period of time.
Very, very separate and clean.
Yeah, but it's collectively together. So and obviously what you've predominantly done is created a syndicate.
Yes.
A closed syndicate with family members where you can actually put all your money together in a tax-effective environment with tax-effective capital gains to buy really good assets.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, imagine having 6 family members that are all on 200K each, putting in a couple of 100K per year, where the family unit could be in 15 or 20 years time with that leverage and time and contribution level.
Spot on, and that's why our kids are in our super.
My kids, yeah. So talk to us about that really briefly. Like, I'm sorry, man. I said it was going to be a 25-minute video,
it's
but
all good.
I keep
Yeah.
learning new things from you.
Yeah.
So why did you establish that? Like, your kids are still young. But,
Yeah, they're young. Yeah, they're not even working. They're studying at the moment, which they're in a dental degree. So when they got into dentistry, I said, right, you guys are going in our super fund. No, I was just joking.
Now that you're both getting me on 300K per year, mum and dad can finally retire.
Yeah, that's right. No, it was just more collectively to say, okay, well, you can set up multiple super funds, you know, and you know, have your own
Chip
thing.
away.
But ideally, if you come in, we're buying property, you can start to learn about it. Like my son took the loan, independent solicitor advice, which you had to do.
Yeah.
And he had to go down to a corporate Brisbane city
You sent him
in
down
front of a
there.
solicitor on his own. I said, mate, right, so what did you learn? And he's like, oh yeah, no, he told me everything. So and then at one stage, he's questioning me. It's like, are you getting yourself into too much debt? So
Yeah, because I'm like, what did you learn? They scared the shit out of you. You've just signed your life away.
Yeah, pretty much. So I said, don't worry about it. There's strategy to this madness, you know, and you're really sitting on the sideline and understanding it all. Like, you've got to sign on tax returns, sign on loan agreements. So at an early stage, we're guiding him through that, even before he's bought his first home.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, in terms of him at university still not drawing down even a first year graduate income in dentistry, how does he financially contribute to the group at this stage? Or is there sort of no contribution, it's learning, and then in the future he'll start chipping in as well?
Spot on. It's just all learning at the moment.
I love that.
It's just more at a stage where once he's obviously, like, he's only got a year and a half, well, a little more than just a year and a half, so year and 3/4 remaining, and he'll be out in the field and hopefully earning some money, which he can then start contributing towards the repayments.
So the learning is more important for children, and that, like, this is what we do as a family. We invest our money, we think about the future, and you're giving him the ideas that you had to figure out on your own.
Yeah.
Because I think from your story, and we did that in a previous video, you know, most of this was figured out on your own. There wasn't someone sitting there going, hey mate, let's build a family super unit, or hey, this is how property works, this is how stocks work, this is how super works, and you know, there's the red carpet. It was you and Jolene painstakingly figuring out every step on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I guess, you know, back then, like, we've been in the game for, you know, 15, you know, 20 years.
Yeah.
It was a lot harder than all the information that you have access to now.
There wasn't videos like this on
Exactly.
YouTube.
Yeah. So, you know, all those years which we've learned, made mistakes on, etc., we're able to, you know, fine tune that to provide advice which is concise and clear to clients and help them perform.
Thank God for that Super for Dummies book 15 years ago. Like, how would any of us have known anything? It's like, that's literally how people used to be.
Pretty much. You've got to go
tax
through
for
a text
dummies. I remember reading it on the way to work when I was 24, and I'm like, property tax for dummies. And I'm like, damn, thank you, YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, well, YouTube's done really well too, haven't they? Like, with the information out there.
Without a doubt. So for any of you guys out there that are loving the idea of learning more about super, please either reach out directly to Matt at Pool Group Wealth, where you can spend some time with him and you can have a great conversation about where you're at and where you're looking to go, and then he might choose that you're a good fit, or you might choose that you're a good fit, or maybe you just learn some more stuff and go do it with whatever you want to do. Alternatively, for those guys of you out there that are seriously thinking about buying a property in the next 3 to 12 months, we over here at Pumped On Property would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. Simply go to www.pumpedonproperty.com, click that free strategy session button. We can talk about where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term. You can take all of that information with a grain of salt and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or you can potentially become one of the small number of people that myself and Matt work with each month, and we can help you on your journey to financial freedom and a life filled with choices. But either way, we wish you absolutely all the best. And yeah, thanks so much for this series, man.
No worries,
I'm learning
pleasure.
so much personally. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, no, it's, once again, thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was all a dream.